All right, good evening to News at Night. I appreciate all you who have came to watch. Yes, unfortunately, we have another incident near the scene where George Floyd was shot about this time last year, as a matter of fact. And this time, it's a bit of a different story. As you can see here, with a different person, and Daunte Wright, who was killed while defying Minnesota police actually, he was actually killed from not Minneapolis police, but it was actually Brooklyn Center police. That's what we'll go through the story right here. So what I'm going to do right here, I'm going to do some intermission. I'm going to set this up so we can see the protest live along with reading the news on what actually happened. So give me a minute, just a second. All right, so hopefully this is good enough for all of you to see, for all of you who have joined me tonight. Well, first of all, let's see what's going on right here.
This guy right here is the captain, I think, of this squad.
Get back! Get that fight up! Get those lights up!
Uh-oh.
Media! Okay, sir! Fuck out of here, man. Fuck.
All right, so courtesy of Unicorn Riot, we are watching the protest.
People here in the parking lot.
Courtesy of Unicorn Riot, we are watching the live protests in Minneapolis. I'm not sure if this is Minneapolis or Brooklyn Center itself, but nonetheless, as all you know, Brooklyn Center, it's your turn. And this time, it was Daunte Wright who ended up dying. So obviously, if you don't know the story, well, the latest is that Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has announced a curfew from 7 p.m. today until 6 p.m. Tuesday for 3 counties within the Minneapolis area. However, hundreds of protesters defied that order and were seen gathering in the city Monday evening. And with the details, concrete barriers have been erected outside the Brooklyn Center Police headquarters following Daunte Wright's death, with all the professional sports teams postponing their games until after the shooting. Downtown security around downtown Minneapolis being heightened, and the body cam, which depending on how many people we have here, we might show that as evidence as well. But let's go on ahead. If you don't know the story, let's go on ahead and see. So body cam video from Sunday's show. Body cam video from Sunday shows senior female police officer Kimberly Potter saying, Holy, I shot him," after allegedly accidentally firing her gun instead of her taser in a struggle with Wright during a traffic stop. Now, we'll go into the traffic stop right quick, because the traffic stop itself is interesting. As you can see here, we're seeing a lot more action. Apparently they got a lot more action than what this guy's getting. So, and as you can see here, here is the individual who was shot, along with what is now confirmed to be his son. Now, we're going to talk about this photo and this picture and why this is going to be looped around in the mainstream media left. Now, a lot of you may think that, oh, they're trying to make this Daunte Wright guy a sympathetic figure and that sort of thing. Well, not quite. Trust me. So Daunte Wright, 20, was shot dead on Sunday afternoon in Brooklyn Center after he was pulled over during the traffic stop for what his mother said was air fresheners dangling from his rearview mirror. And obviously he's pictured there with his 1-year-old son, Daunte Wright Jr. So this guy's 20 years old and already has a 1-year-old son. Now, I'm going to take note of that, as well as the complexion of him and his son. So, obviously, the mayor of Brooklyn Center, who is black, said the latest shooting feels for the community like a band-aid was ripped off a wound that hasn't healed yet. He's asked people to go home and protest at another time when we're not having to engage with the law enforcement at a time like this. So, obviously, let's go ahead and... So, you got the protesters, you got a lot of supporters of Mr. Wright, a lot of BLM supporters. I know some people on the right will say that Antifa is back at it again and they're trying to shake stuff up. Whatever you think. Whatever's happening is real. So, as you can see here, the barricades around the Brooklyn Park, Minnesota Police Department, which, by the way, has a black mayor. So, we got to look at this from all sides. You got security around downtown Minneapolis and fears of them being rioted, and the protester already being pepper sprayed. Speaking of which, we are aware of the pepper spray incident that happened in Virginia regarding an officer. We may talk about that on the future news at night. But, yeah. So, and we're trying to find the incident. Let's just do this right quick. There we go. Alright. So, Brooklyn Center Police Chief Tim Gannon on Monday described the fatal shooting of Wright as an accidental discharge. Wright was shot dead on Sunday afternoon after he and his girlfriend were pulled over during the traffic stop for what police say was an expired car registration. The officers then learned Wright, who has a toddler son, had an outstanding warrant against him. The Hennepin County Medical Examiner on Monday evening ruled his manner of death was homicide and that the cause of death was a gunshot wound to the chest. So, during an intense press conference, Gannon released the body cam footage, which I'm assuming you can find wherever, that showed 3 officers approaching Wright's car after he had been pulled over for the traffic stop. The footage showed one officer trying to handcuff Wright as a second officer told him he was being arrested on a warrant. Wright immediately jumped back into the car in an apparent attempt to flee. Oh man. A struggle then broke out between the officers and Wright, who was still sitting inside the car. The female officer, named Monday as Kimberly A. Potter, could be heard shouting taser several times in the moments before she fired her gun. Well, the gun ended up not being a taser, but instead an actual gun. Immediately after, the female officer can be heard saying, "Holy, I shot him." It appears she dropped her actual gun in the aftermath. Gannon said he did not believe a gun was retrieved from Wright's car. So, now, notice individual here. And this is where the story gets interesting. This is where the story gets to what I want to talk about. This is the reason why I believe that this story will definitely be pushed. Not because they care, not because they want justice, not because they want peace. And trust me, if they wanted justice, if they cared about incidents like this, wouldn't the George Floyd trial be the entire story going into 2021? Wouldn't this be the story that would be breaking news all day, every day on the big 4 stations? Wouldn't you realize that? So, and salute to all of you who are in the chat, but I want all of you to notice something. They call this individual, for starters, I'm not sure if she's the person, yeah, so she is the individual who shot what she thought was a taser, but it ended up being an actual gun. We'll find out if it was a mistake or not, but nonetheless, this is the individual that the mainstream media is calling black. Now, obviously, from the looks of it, I mean, come on. This individual is, I mean, yeah, the 1-drop rule strikes again, for starters. And noticing his 1-year-old son, if anything, this guy looks lighter than him. I'm not trying to bring skin tone. The reason why I'm bringing skin tone into this is for a particular reason. I'm going somewhere with this. His mother is pictured right here. Katie Wright speaks during the vigil for her son Daunte Wright on Monday. She said her son called her in the moments before he was shot to say police had pulled him over for having air fresheners dangling from his rearview mirror. It is illegal in Minnesota to have anything hanging from a rearview mirror. So right there, I mean, you're already setting yourself up for attention, unwarranted attention by the police. And he said he was riding with his girlfriend too, so I want to see how his girlfriend looks like and if that girlfriend is the mother of his child. So right there you have a white mother of a biracial son. Or how should I say it like this? A white mother of a black son. A white mother of a black son, according to the mainstream media. Now, a lot of people are going to say, where is the father? And some people will literally ask that. Some people, however, will ask that in jest and as a rhetorical question, meaning to say that, of course, there is no father. When a white woman gets with a black man, or if any woman gets with a black man, then of course there's going to be no father. Of course he's going to be a rolling stone. Of course he's going to abandon the kids because that's what they do best. Which leads me to the reason why you're going to see this photo circulate and the other photo of his mother crying. This is not to harness any sort of sympathy or empathy for this individual. And to be honest, of course the mainstream media would pick a case like this where you have a guy resisting arrest after doing something illegal and having warrants and just writing dirty 7 ways from Sunday. I'm not defending this guy and saying that he's the most upstanding individual, but I'm not going to say that he deserved to die neither. But nonetheless, the mainstream media is going to pick the case like this out because, well, yeah, if you haven't watched my past videos, I've always stated this. It's always the cases where the person who's shot has a shady past or was doing something shady, was operating shady, to the point that he ended up getting shot by the police. Those are the stories that the mainstream media will cover. Those are the stories that the mainstream media will pick out. But when you have someone who's actually being discriminated or being wrongfully killed, those stories, and we have plenty of examples if you really look, those stories actually remain covered. Those stories remain untold. Those stories remain unheard. And it's for a reason. I'll let you judge on what reason that is, but nonetheless, the reason why they're going to circulate this is because they, along creating a hood underclass, which is what I talk about in the 3 fates, they want to have that multiracial class of individuals be part of that hood underclass. And this is all done in order to discourage interracial dating for black men and not black women. That's what I think. That's one of the reasons why I think this is going to circulate. This is going to serve as a cautionary tale for anyone who wants to even think about starting any sort of romantic relationship with any black male, and it doesn't matter the complexion. This is what you're going to end up with. This is the BS you're going to end up. This is the drama you're going to end up with. So don't be like this woman. Don't be like this woman who burned the coal and paid the toll. That is, obviously the right wing is going to say, they're going to say this blatantly, but the left is going to say this in the more covert way as they're doing right here. So there's that. And obviously the story goes on with what went on earlier today. Oh, and they may, oh, well, I'm surprised they haven't wrapped this one up. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, exactly. I'm surprised they aren't wrapping these pictures around. I mean, if anything, yeah. So as you can see here, those are the footages. And what we're going to do now, we're just going to do this. We're going to do some research. So bear with me just a second. All right, we're back. So we're trying to do some research on the spot, in which, okay, we have coverage here. So the mother speaks out, obviously.
20-year-old Daunte Wright was shot by a police officer. He was on the phone with his mother just moments before his death. Protesters clashing with police in the aftermath of the shooting, and anger spilling over into looting at a nearby shopping center. We are getting a more extensive look at that damage in the morning light. Store windows have been shattered. Cleanup is now underway.
All of this happening as emotions are already high with the trial of Derek.
And I heard the police officer say, "Daunte, don't run." And then the other officer said, "Put the phone down," and hung it up. And then like a minute later, I called and his girlfriend answered, which was the passenger in the car, and said that he'd been shot. And she put it on the driver's side, and my son was laying there lifeless.
Authorities say that.
So, yes, on the surface, you see a concerned mother.
Officers attempted
car.
But behind the surface, or behind the scenes, what they're trying to paint this as, is the result of, if you happen to be a white woman or a non-black woman who wants to have a romantic relationship or any sort of involvement with a black man, this is going to be your result. This is what you're going to end up with. This is how you're going to look on national TV, with a bunch of trap music playing in the background, and that's how your life is going to end up. That's what a lot of this is for. This is a psyop if I've ever seen it. Not the incident itself, obviously not. But the mainstream left and the mainstream right are definitely going to capitalize on this and going to blast this image and this. Yeah, they're just going to blast this as what happens in order to discourage more interracial dating. I know some individuals will say, "Oh, they're trying to make the world mix." Well, maybe the world. I can't talk about the world, but they're trying to make America mix. Well, mix with what? Everything but blacks? Oh, I definitely see it. Because they aren't trying to incorporate blacks into this great American mixing, great American sauce that they're trying to create in the 21st century. Yeah, other races perhaps, especially with the with the AAPI marches, and shout out to them for that, with the awareness. But I mean, even with the AAPI stuff, who's going to be the face? Who's going to be the boogeyman of the AAPI? I don't think this is a false flag. I really don't think this is a false flag. But it's sort of like, what do they say about the Democrats? They never let a tragedy go to waste, and neither do in this case the conservatives, the far righters. So somewhere the mainstream media left and the mainstream media right, which, I mean, if you want to call it the alt-right, the alternative, I mean, it's the mainstream right at this point. Both sides are in it for their own purposes. Yes, you got some individuals who are going to push the BLM stuff and continue that play that they did from last year. All right, fine. But you're going to have some individuals who are going to also try this narrative, really push this narrative of, don't even look at the way of these BMs. You know what? We can't force anti-miscegenation. We can't do that legally, but so we're going to do that socially. And we're going to do that to the best of our abilities. No, we can't have a mixed nation. No, we can't have a peaceful mixed nation. Or if we're going to have a mixed nation, then fine. We're going to have a mixed nation full of white, Latino, and Asians who will be part of the American mainstream. And anyone who's mixed with black, oh, you're part of that underclass. You're part of that black underclass. Hashtag one drop rule. Hashtag the suspect was black. All right. Are you kidding me? Please.
And said that he'd been shot.
We've seen them across town, but
12 minutes. They take a few steps forward. They were chanting, "Move back, move back."
Protesters retreated to the street and raised their voices. Then every few minutes, police deployed tear gas and flashbangs to move the crowds back. A little before midnight, with reinforcements from the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office and National Guard as backup, police delivered an order saying the crowd was no longer peacefully gathered and to move out or be arrested.
The Brooklyn Center mayor is planning to speak at 11 o'clock this morning about the situation. We will take that live on television when it starts. Governor Tim Walz also tweeted saying he is monitoring the situation and that he's praying for Wright's family. We also expect to hear more from the governor sometime today.
The looting also spread to South Minneapolis in the early morning hours, hitting some of the same areas that were damaged or destroyed less than 1 year ago after George Floyd died. We saw several stores broken into again, as well as a heavy law enforcement presence. Local community members also stepped up to stand guard over their neighborhood. Also in Minneapolis, 2 people were killed in an overnight shooting. This happened just after 2 o'clock this morning. Minneapolis police say that a man was found dead inside a crashed car with a gunshot wound. About a block away, officers found a second person shot dead in the street, and then later, a third person showed up at the hospital, also with a gunshot. Investigators say there were several shooting calls overnight. These were the only fatalities.
The overnight unrest has launched Operation Safety Net into Phase 3 earlier than planned. In the early morning hours, state law enforcement leaders said they've activated everyone they can to stand guard around the Twin Cities area.
All right, so there you go with the unrest in Minneapolis, or within the Minneapolis area. So what do we have here?
People find your work. You can follow us on Instagram at the Neighborhood Reporter. That's where we're most active. Check out our story.
All right, so they're just doing interviews right now between individuals. But let's go on ahead and look at the person himself. Who is or who was Daunte Wright? Obviously, we all know the scenario of him being killed. It was shortly before 2 p.m. on April the 11th during a routine traffic stop. So, and obviously, we already discussed this portion. Yeah, so, yeah. What did authorities say about the incident? So, yeah, basically what is stated here is what we've already told you from earlier. But yeah, as far as that's concerned, let's go to see what we can find in regards of the latest on the ground action. So it seems like the only thing that's really happening right now is what's being shown right here. So yeah, but do not doubt that this won't pick up within the next few days, especially given the fact that they are about to go to the defense portion of the George Floyd trial. So this is where Derek Chauvin's team gets to pull out all the evidence saying that this was not a homicide. This was not, the 9 minutes of choking was not done. And yeah, so let's see what the defense comes up with and if they can really push the story that George Floyd died from being high on drugs or an overdose or a fake $20 bill or whatever. But yeah, let's go on ahead and see the other stories that I have here. So, oh, well, not so much other stories, but nonetheless, let's go back to the main story. So obviously here is the, okay, so as well you can see here, we can, for a second, we will watch the cam footage showing the pulling over of Daunte Wright. All right, so all of you got some extra footage of that. I didn't mean to show that, honestly. But yeah, nonetheless, Yes, you have. So here's the story basically in repeat. So the only difference between this and the last story was the female cop who accidentally shot Daunte Wright. They just revealed her identity. It's right there, which is some. But yeah, nonetheless, what do I want to do in regards to this news? What's the lesson I want to bring up in all of this? Well, I already told you about the main story, and I've already told you what they're trying to do. But the lesson we have to come from tonight is this. Sorry if I'm not speaking in the best way possible. It's just been a long day for me. But, and especially with a story like this is definitely something that I feel as an affront to me personally. Because, I mean, quite frankly, I mean, God forbid if you as a thinking man tried to be happy and tried to, yeah. But here's the lesson I want to bring to all of you tonight. Yeah, well, you know what? Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say that she meant to do it or she didn't. That's not what this is necessary for. We'll find that out in the next few months, perhaps, particularly with the trial. This seems to be more or less an open and shut case of who did it, but the intention's definitely not there, so this would definitely be drawn out in the trial, which the mainstream media will definitely make into a circus, or maybe not so much of a circus as they're doing with the Derek Chauvin trial. It seems like, yeah, they're covering it, but it's more under wraps than you would expect. I'm not going to give my personal reason on why I think they're doing that, but nonetheless, the cautionary tale is this. For all of you who, like myself, have an alternative lifestyle of dealing with women outside your race, it is very important and it's very essential that you operate in a way that does not give credence to anyone who opposes it, whether it's the pro-vax or the alt-righters. Because the pro-vax will say, well, man, look, this is the best you was able to get with, man. Man, he when you outside the Communitah, when you do the sisters, he just dealt with the women who the white man didn't want, and yeah, and you gonna leave anyway. You broke, man. You broke. You broke, and you ain't got no game and swag, and man, look. You got, and also the alt-righters, they'll say the same thing. Oh, you're just going for the trash we don't want, huh? And of course, your son's gonna end up being a mongrel, and he's gonna end up trying to be hood, and he's gonna have his own bastard kids, and that sort of thing. I mean, that's what the black and white manospheres are going to say about this. I mean, there's a reason why there's very little coverage on this as is. I mean, they had no problem giving coverage to George Floyd and a couple of other stuff throughout the years, but yeah, when it comes to this, I mean, that's the reason why they aren't covering this, because a lot of these guys just can't help their little egos to just spur out something of that nature. Which is why I emphasize to the guys who are listening right now, please operate. I hate to say it like this, be in your best behavior when you're dating outside your race. One, have standards. I'm not saying anything against this mother. Two, take care of your kids. And three, just don't do anything that would incite anyone who's on the ethnically separate side to justify their feelings and justify an agenda of discouraging thinking BMs from being able to date outside their culture or their race. Because a lot of this is done, not necessarily the story from itself, but there are a lot of entities who are going to take advantage of this in order to keep thinking BMs on the plantation, keep thinking BMs from exploring their options, and make thinking BMs, or keep thinking BMs at the mercy of the Communitah. This is what this is. So other than that, I want to thank you all for joining me. It's been 31 minutes. I see that we have a very light crowd tonight. That's fine. It's a Monday. It's midnight. So I figure a lot of you will be asleep and a lot of you will watch the playback. So unless I see anything within the next few minutes or seconds of any particular questions or insightful comments. Let's just see. Oh, this is insightful. So you bought some body armor right after the George Floyd thing. Well, hey, look, I don't blame you. I do not blame you. Hell, body armor is almost halfway to becoming the trend. That might become a fashion trend with the way things are going at this point. And that'll be across races, which I highly suggest. And it is, yeah, it's illegal to have air fresheners out the rearview mirror. It's illegal to have anything out the rearview mirror in the state of Minnesota. So, and yeah, I mean, you can say he should have complied. He should. I mean, there are several things that he could have done to save his own life, and I'm not going to deny that. Which is convenient that the mainstream media is choosing this story to push, and they're going to choose the story to push because this fits perfectly into the narrative, into what they want to portray here, in order to just give an asterisk to black injustice. Because if they actually had a case in which the dude was complying but still got shot, one, they wouldn't show it, and two, if it ever got out there, then it would really make America the laughingstock that it's slowly becoming, or in some cases, according to some people, already is, already has been, always has been. But yeah, other than that, I encourage you to look more into the story. I have the links below in the detail. And everyone else out there, enjoy your night, or at least try to.